What is up everyone, welcome back to another top 10 video where this week, we're going to be breaking down the top plays from week 4 of stage 3 in the Overwatch League. With just 2 matches remaining for each team to attempt to break into the stage playoffs, every map this week proved absolutely crucial. Even the Shanghai Dragons heavily impacted the rankings this week as despite their loss to Philadelphia breaking the all-time losing streak record throughout professionally recognized sporting history, their 2 map wins in that series ensure that Philadelphia will have a far more difficult time rising through the standings. As of the conclusion of this week's matches, Houston, Philadelphia, and Seoul are the 3 teams with the most realistic claim to the 3rd and 4th spots in the playoffs, currently held by the LA Valiant and LA Gladiators respectively. Funnily enough, both LA teams will do battle with the currently undefeated Boston Uprising throughout the final week of competition. If Boston hold on to their unblemished record, it could pave the way for one of those 3 aforementioned teams to sneak in and clinch their playoff spot. Plenty to look forward to as the Stage 3 playoffs loom, so let's take the time now to look back at just how these teams fared most recently as we dissect the most notable moments of the past week. Opening the list this week, we have a completely unique kill coming out from Sky as the Shanghai Dragons went toe-to-toe with the Boston Uprising on Ilios. As the Dragons were attempting to swing momentum in the second phase of the map, we can just barely see Sky in the corner of the screen as he shoots out a volley of Xenobs and takes down Kelix to start out the engagement, a Kelix nearing Valkyrie no less. From his perspective in the footage later shared on Twitter, we can see how perfectly timed the attack truly was. From an unconventional position, Sky only had the holes in the fencing to find his target and actually had to jump in order to send out the volley. He manages to find one of the most important targets in impressive fashion, giving his team the distinct advantage heading into the next engagement. In at number 9 this week, we have a really well executed flank from Striker and a hero we don't see him play all too often. During the first phase of their offensive run, we see a single support composition in play for Boston once again, and if you watched our previous video breaking down Boston's upset over New York, you'll know exactly how efficient Kelix is on the Mercy throughout Junkertown. Flanking around the Dallas defense, we can see Striker approaching Seagull on the high ground. Just as Seagull activates his Riptire, Striker puts forth the necessary damage to take the hero and the ultimate out of action. Just to add insult to injury, Striker then activates a tire of his own and directs it straight towards Seagull. A quick play but an efficient one nonetheless, as Striker downs both Seagull and his Riptire in one smooth motion thanks to a superb flank. Coming in at number 8, we have yet another appearance from the Shanghai Dragons, and as a matter of fact, it comes from the very same map of the series in our 10th spot this week against the Boston Uprising. Another quick play, but undeniably a moment worthy of praise. As we see the Shanghai Dragons approaching the point, Boston execute a halt and hook combo onto Dia, who is rapidly saved by Geggery thanks to her sublime reaction time, as she boosts into Note and ensures that her teammate doesn't fall into the pit of death. Despite ultimately coming up short in the teamfight, it goes without saying that Geggery's reaction time here is something to marvel as she shocks the Uprising and boops a teammate to safety. In at number 7, we have one of the most effective tanks in the league coming through with one of the most effective Winston ultimates thus far. Throughout their 10 maps played this week, it was Fisher's Winston on Volskaya that secured the Gladiators a spot on this week's list as he primal rages to find 3 huge kills in a marquee matchup. From the replay, we can see that Fisher started out the impressive ultimate by knocking closer off the map and wisely denying the resurrection of Gesture in the process. Without hesitating, he then goes on to tap a weakened Bedosin before diving into Hurag to complete the 3rd kill in just a matter of seconds. An incredibly well-positioned primal rage as Fisher is able to single-handedly destabilize the push of the Spitfire and aid his team when coming out on top in the series.
Whoa, that is 3 for Fisher. A lot of people going for a swim in the icy depths of Volskaya Industries.
Coming in at number 6, we have the 3rd and final appearance of Shanghai on this list, the most of any week prior. As whilst they certainly pulled off some noteworthy individual plays, it was a team effort that gave them a map win over the top team of Stage 3. As the clock rolls into overtime on the final map of their series against the Boston Uprising, we can see that the Shanghai squad is left without an ultimate to their name for this final engagement. With spawn advantage on their side, however, the Dragons execute on some well-planned overtime play as they stagger their presence on the payload and all but minimize the impact of Boston's remaining ults. Dropping to just a bar of health, Fearless stays alive as he intelligently dives overhead to the mega health pack off screen. The Transcendence comes into play from the Uprising as Mistakes also activates his Dragon Blade. Only managing to find a single kill, Shanghai does a great job here of ensuring that they aren't clumped together in overtime as many teams often are. They swing momentum in their favour as they find a few crucial picks onto the remaining squishies as only the tanks of Boston remain. Wisely swapping over to the Reaper, Dia makes quick work of the beefy targets as the fight is wrapped up in favour of the underdogs. Despite dropping both of their matches, it was an impressive showing this week from the team at the bottom of the rankings, as through this map win, they're 12th overall. Perhaps a new fire was ignited inside them as they went on to force out a 5th map in their series against the Philadelphia Fusion later on. Coming in at number 5 this week, we have back-to-back 3K Diva Bombs as the San Francisco Shock did battle with the London Spitfire. In the first map of the series, it was Nevix of the San Francisco Shock who perfectly positioned his Diva Bomb to take down 3 members of the London Spitfire. From the angle in the replay, we can see that the timing was as good as you could ever hope for with the Diva Bomb, as the London team were left with no paths to salvation. In the very next map, Fury of the London Spitfire answered back in kind with a 3K Diva Bomb of his own. As the San Francisco team wrapped around the objective and attempted to take out the squishies in the backline, Fury sends his Diva Bomb sky high and connects with 3 members of the Shock. Again, just a perfectly positioned ultimate as the opposition were left with no way in which to defend themselves. Moving into the play in our 4th spot this week, we have Jonak of the New York Excelsior and a hero other than Zenyatta. Who would have thought? San Francisco took the point on Temple of Anubis with an astounding amount of time left on the clock, leaving them with just over 7 minutes in which to work on taking point B. Unfortunately for them, NYXL happened to execute on a remarkably sturdy defense that withstood everything the Shock could throw at it. Just passing the 2-minute mark, San Francisco stormed the point and rapidly took down half of NYXL, including both supports. On the respawn, Jonak wasn't about to just give up. He swapped over to Mei, and typically that's a pick that comes out when a team is attempting to stall. Jonak, however, isn't necessarily the stalling type, as he comes out onto the point and finds 3 quick kills with only 4 shots fired. He takes out Dante with a headshot, connects twice onto Moth, and then somehow finds this final hit onto Sleepy, as NYXL managed to defend point B of Anubis for a seemingly insurmountable period of time. Coming in at number 3, we have Sayaplayer returning to the list once again thanks to his stupendous accuracy. It's honestly kind of staggering what he's capable of when properly positioned and supported by his team. After tearing through the first 2 sections of Junkertown, Sayaplayer activates his Infrasight and immediately goes to work in picking apart the backline of the Valiant. He opens with a disgusting flick onto Soon, followed by a second headshot onto Custer in flight, a third quick flick onto Kareev, and finally ends the successive kills with a pick onto a retreating Agilities. In real time, it took Sayaplayer less than 10 seconds to completely open up the 3rd section of the map for his team. His Widowmaker prowess is truly on par with the very best in the league as he styles on the Valiant and closed out the week with another exquisite highlight added to his reel.
Oh my god! Oh, there we go, Saya! Triple kill from him! The huge plays! Just tombing him! Get out, Valiant!
In the 2nd spot this week, we stick with the Valiant on Junkertown, however in this play, they're the ones in complete control. Coming back from spawn, Soon is able to catch 4 members of the Outlaws in rapid succession. From his perspective, we see him open with a kill onto an unsuspecting Raucus, followed by a quick snap onto Jake as well as the DMEC onto Kulmat and eventually this ridiculous headshot onto Barney. One man without an ultimate or a support to back up his efforts was enough to send 2/3 of the Outlaws back to spawn and ensure that his team won the map. But not only did they win the closing map of the series, keep in mind that Junkertown is by far the most dominant map in the game for the Outlaws, and the Valiant just held them to the first point. An exceptional effort as not even Jake could propel his team to a win on their favoured map this week. And finally, closing out the list, we have a remarkable combination coming out from the San Francisco Shock in their series against NYXL. Whilst it is definitely a combination we've seen in the league prior, it hasn't really been executed onto this degree of efficiency before. Patiently waiting behind enemy lines as he communicates the sequence to the rest of his team, Dante has an EMP at the ready and knows that he can put it to good use given his current position. Advancing behind Pine and the rest of NYXL, Dante eventually activates his ultimate and hacks 5 targets as a result. Nevix immediately follows this up, sending his Diva Bomb overhead to find a well-earned 3k against the top team in the league. The EMP left NYXL all but defenseless as the Orisa shield dissipates and 3 members are caught in the monstrous explosion from Nevix, leading to one of the quickest payload runs in Junkertown history up until this point. As we can see, San Francisco had 5.5 minutes in which to work with. A sensational effort, absolutely worthy of highlight, and without a doubt, the most impressive moment this week. So that does it for the top 10 plays of week 4, another really enjoyable week of action to dissect. I do hope you enjoyed the video as well. Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below, let me know what plays you think deserve a spot on the list, but as always, thanks for tuning in and I'll see you in the next one.